How on earth did South Korea pull off one of the most incredible economic transformations we've ever seen? Well, I can tell you, it wasn't an accident, and it definitely wasn't magic. It was a series of three massive, incredibly audacious bets on infrastructure that completely rewrote the nation's future. So let's break down that blueprint.
So that's the big question, right? How does a nation actually engineer an economic miracle? The story of South Korea shows us there is a blueprint, a kind of repeatable formula for taking a massive leap forward. It's a story of betting big on the future, and not just once, but 3 times in a row.
Okay, so let's get into it. The whole blueprint really unfolds in 3 distinct waves. First, they literally paved a nation with physical roads. Second, they wired up their entire economy with digital infrastructure. And third, the wave we're all living in right now, they started building intelligence itself, what we call cognitive infrastructure. And what's wild is that each leap built on the one before it, completely redefining what infrastructure even means.
All right, Wave 1. This whole thing kicks off back in the late 1960s. You gotta remember, South Korea was still very much a developing nation at this point, but its leaders had this really bold vision, one they got from looking at Germany's Autobahn. They decided to build a massive highway, the Gyeongbu Expressway, to connect the capital, Seoul, all the way down to the port city of Busan.
Now you have to understand, this was an incredibly controversial idea at the time. The country didn't have a lot of money, and the critics were loud. They called it a total waste, a vanity project, nothing more than a tourism road for the rich, mainly because almost nobody actually owned a car. It seemed completely out of touch with what people needed right then and there.
But here's the thing. That criticism completely missed the point. The payoff was just immense. The real value of this highway wasn't about moving people. It was about moving goods. It's estimated to have saved the economy about 8.2 trillion won just in reduced shipping costs, and it became the absolute lifeblood of Korea's new export-driven economy.
And this is where you see the master plan. The expressway's real purpose was to be a tool for industrial planning. Look at this, nearly 60% of the national industrial parks and over 61% of the local ones were built right alongside this highway. It wasn't some road for tourists, it was a concrete artery, a pipeline that connected factories to ports and created the manufacturing hubs that powered the country's entire growth.
Okay, so let's fast forward a few decades. Another crisis hits. The 1997 Asian financial crisis just devastated the economy. And that old manufacturing model, it just wasn't going to be enough anymore. South Korea needed a totally new engine for growth, and they found it in the digital world. This was the beginning of the second Great Leap.
And the response was just unbelievably fast and ambitious. I mean, they're facing economic collapse, and what do? The government launches Cyber Korea 21. Over just the next few years, they poured 28 trillion won into building a world-class high-speed internet backbone. It was basically a national survival strategy dressed up as a tech project.
And guess what? Just like with the expressway, the plan had its doubters. Experts were really worried that pushing all these private companies to build their own networks would just lead to wasteful, overlapping infrastructure. The fear was that it was too much, too fast, and nobody was even asking for it yet.
But that fierce competition, that turned out to be the secret sauce. It basically created a race, driving companies to lay fiber optic cable to nearly every single home in the country at lightning speed and for a low cost. This hyperconnectivity sparked an explosion in everything from online banking to stock trading, creating a brand new digital ecosystem and a stunningly fast, V-shaped economic recovery. And all this digital plumbing created something nobody really saw coming: the export of stuff you can't even touch. The perfect example is this online game Mir 2, which became a gigantic hit in China. At its peak, the royalties from that one game made up a huge chunk of a totally new export model. Korea was no longer just exporting cars and ships, it was exporting culture, entertainment, and code.
Which, of course, brings us to today, and the third great wave. This leap is different. It's not about connecting places with asphalt or connecting computers with cables. This one is about building intelligence itself. The next great national infrastructure is cognitive.
So, what in the world is cognitive infrastructure? Well, think of it as all the core pieces you need to create and use AI on a national scale. It's the special AI semiconductors that act as the brain. It's the large language models, the AIs that can understand and write, that provide the reasoning. And maybe most importantly, it's the high-quality, machine-readable data that acts as the fuel for the whole system.
The shift here is just profound. In the past, infrastructure was all about increasing the speed of movement. Whether that was a truck on a highway or a packet of data on the internet, the infrastructure of the future, it's all about increasing the speed of processing, the ability to think, to analyze, and to create value from information. We're literally moving from physical links to cognitive capability.
So how do you actually build it? Well, the strategy has three main pillars. First, you have to develop the brain. That means homegrown AI chips and language models, so you're not dependent on anyone else. Second, you need the fuel. Massive, high-quality public data sets that are structured so that machines can actually learn from them. And third, you need to give that brain a body, fusing AI with physical industries like urban air mobility, think flying taxis, and advanced defense systems.
So when you look at all three of these stories together, the highway, the internet, and now AI, you start to see it. A really clear pattern emerges. It's a blueprint for how a nation can literally engineer its own massive leaps forward.
And here's that pattern, laid out. Each wave tackled the core need of its time. The expressway was all about logistics, and it worked because of a strong government push. The internet was about building a knowledge economy, and success there came from unleashing private competition. And this next wave, the cognitive one, is all about achieving tech sovereignty, and that is going to depend entirely on creating high-quality data infrastructure.
But if you boil this entire story down to one single powerful lesson, it's this. The winning formula is to create the supply before the demand even exists. The highway was built before there were enough cars to fill it. The internet was built before most people knew what to do with it. Each time, it was a bold, preemptive investment to create the future, instead of just reacting to the present.
And this leaves us with a final, really provocative thought. If building infrastructure way ahead of the curve is the proven blueprint for a national quantum leap, it makes you wonder, for any nation, anywhere, what's the next audacious bet? What's the thing that everyone thinks is crazy today, but will define the economy of tomorrow?